So we have Josh and Helen with us today. Hopefully that this would be an ongoing event. We've been talking about this for a long time, having some kind of regular event. We had, when we first talked about it, we called this AUA, Ask Us Anything, right? And Josh kind of just mentioned that a couple of days ago. We thought that maybe we should try it once. So let me. I guess most of you know me. My name is Denny Miu, um, and I have with me Josh Dippold, right?
Dippold.
Dippold.
It's a
Sorry,
strange
Dippold.
last
Yeah,
name, surname, Dippold.
Dippold.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Hey, Josh, why don't you introduce yourself? Well, you were born in Missouri, very close to. I think, in fact, you were born in St. Louis, weren't you not?
Well, not necessarily. So I was actually born in Cape Girardeau, so it's about an hour and a half away on the interstate. So and then I grew up in Southeast Missouri and went to school in Columbia, Missouri for a couple years. Dropped out, worked for about 10 years there, and then moved to St. Louis in about 2012. So.
Well, the other day when we talk about the theme and the people we should invite, I think I mentioned. I guess I'm kind of confused. I think there's a saying about the 12 degrees of separation, and then there's another one, kind of the reverse of that, which is 6 degrees of connection, something like that, right? Correct me
Yep.
if I'm wrong, something like that. So I'm hoping more and more people would join, but on the other hand, I think just having this regular forum, connecting with people who are watching, would be already a very nice thing. And so, what is that degree of connections that you and I have?
Well, before we start off here and dive in, I just want to give a disclaimer that probably some of the stuff I'll be mentioning and talking about, um, obviously don't take it as at face value or as truth or anything like that. It's just a reference for everybody to do their own due diligence. And sometimes I'm not the greatest at giving the exact source material. I just happen to remember things like, so if I mention suttas, or just different things and I don't remember where it came from, it could just be a starting point for your own research and whatnot. So our connection, Denny, is, well, we first met out at MABA, right, Mid America Buddhist Association, on retreat, right? Okay. So you want to, and I think we hit it off right away, and just kind of how enthusiastic we were and are about practice, meditation practice, and
Yeah,
just the
yeah.
great opportunity we had there too.
Yeah, yeah. So the reason I kind of couch our conversation that way is as much as we talk about the connection, and we'll elaborate on that, but I just want to make sure that we don't represent anybody. We don't represent our teacher. We don't represent a particular
Yes.
lineage of Buddhist practice. We just represent us, right?
Hmm.
And so you and I get together for this because we do have at least one degrees of connection, which is that we share the same Dhamma master, Master Zero, who is a very interesting person, and hopefully we'll talk more about him. And hey, it looks like Holly is joining
Oh,
us.
hey, Holly.
So
Exactly.
I was just talking about the degree of connection between Josh and I, but as it turns out, the three of us share the same degrees of connection, which is that we have the same Dharma master, and I mentioned Master Jiru's name. So in any case, so Josh and I, as Josh was saying, that we met at one of the retreat in Augusta, Missouri, which is an hour drive from St. Louis.
Uh-huh.
And then the other times that we follow up with a relationship was actually a 3-day meditation retreat in last December, right?
Burlingame, California. Yeah.
Burlingame,
Oh
California.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So we're hoping that, so we kind of put that out there, and then but what we're really hoping to do is use this forum to kind of talk about more on a can I use the word academic or more technical? What is the
Well, I think this is almost an experiment now. We kind of talked about, yeah, we could talk about, yeah, academic, maybe a scholarly approach, but also practice-based too. So if we just want to jump right into it, I'm good with that as well.
Yeah,
So,
okay. Well,
yeah.
how about we do this? How about we do this? We kind of go around the table and kind of
Yes.
say, hey, how you know what is the quote unquote practice? What does it mean to you? All right. You want to do that first, Josh? What is your practice? Yeah.
Well,
What are you trying to achieve, right?
that's a great thing. Yes, and also I think the intent is really important in practice. Something I don't reflect on enough because it all comes back to why are we doing this? You know, what is the purpose behind this? And I just think it's so manifold, the benefits and reasons and purposes and what kind of the end goal is, right? So, I mean, it has just layer upon layer of that. I guess I can go into that a little bit, but
Yeah.
try to
If I may,
keep it brief.
Josh,
Yes, yeah.
I'm always pretending that there are other people watching this, like, so this is my thing, like we have all these followers, thousands and
Right.
thousands of them.
Yes.
So I gotta make sure that they understand what we're talking about first, because I don't want to lose them. This is one of the things that I learned from business is that you don't ever lose a customer. It's hard enough to get them, but once you get them, you don't want to lose them.
Yes.
Audience side. So I want to make sure that people understand that when we talk about practice, we're talking about meditation, okay? And there's so many different ways of explaining that. Josh, go ahead. Sorry for
Yes,
interrupting.
thanks for pointing that out. I forget who the potential audience is. Anybody, right? Pretty much. So yeah, it's like, and then I would say the core maybe is what I'm talking about is a formal meditation practice with majority on the sitting, even though that's not, that's only a very tiny portion of it. But I'll just maybe keep it at that for now. So like on the cushion, they call that too. So the benefits are just the everyday for everybody. I mean, I'm sure everybody's heard about meditation, right? So the benefits are really obvious, like less stress, calm, blood pressure. I had psoriasis, and that's actually a scientific thing that it helps with that, and that went away when I started this. Just, but it's called practice, I think, for a reason because it's to better meet our everyday lives. So where we come from a place of responding instead of reacting. So it allows more of a space where we have a choice on how we respond to our everyday situations in our everyday lives instead of being on autopilot, acting out habit patterns, and just reacting out of habit. It seems that way a lot of times. So it provides a space to or allow to open up and be able to respond, for me to be able to respond to situations instead of just reacting.
It's the ultimate personal space, right?
Yes.
It's a space between your mind and your brain, right? We always think that the mind and the brain are one and the same, but it's actually not. Yeah.
Because you can actually physically find the brain. I don't know where the mind is. We can't hunt that down. We can't Google it. Yeah. So the original question was, why are we doing this? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Or the intent. So and then on a higher level, it just it's more. We talk about there's a sudden awakening, right, and then gradual awakening. So the ultimate goal is to awaken and be free. So the awakening. So it just means to be less ignorant and to have freedom. A lot of times, freedom from things. So freedom from stress and suffering, and it just gradually increases that type of freedom. Like I said earlier, it allows more choices too, to be able to see more choices available, and just to know what choices are skillful, wise, and wholesome. It just becomes more self-apparent. It's kind of hard to explain like that. but I'm going to pass it on. I've talked long enough, and I can come back and continue this as I get as the memory gets more jogged. And
Well,
that's
you know,
another thing too. Mindfulness is another interpretation for sati, this ancient word that the Buddha said to rediscover. Right? Is it's often interpreted as mindfulness. There's the other interpretations I like are bodyfulness, which is actually, sometimes we think it's such a mental process, but it's actually an embodied knowing, bodyfulness. Some people interpret it as awareness, but also remembering too. That's the one that Shifu uses, right? And Master Jiru uses as remembering. I love that as well. It's really, that's another whole topic too. So I'm just going to pass it on now.
You know, in Japan, it's very important to understand the custom, which is that you never pour your own drink. So even if you have a bottle of beer, you pour for someone else and you put it back on the table and someone else pour for you. So I asked the question, and now it's your turn to ask the question.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, okay. And
Why don't you ask Holly, and then we just go around, yeah.
Holly, yeah, if you'd like. So what is your, why do you meditate? Why do you have a daily meditation or a meditation practice? How does it help you? What's the point?
Yeah, huh. To switch gears here, what is the point?
Yes. And it can be secular.
Be more aware as I journey through this body and in this world, and to leave the world better than I find it. As I the more, I don't know, the more that I can kind of heal myself and be aware of my own triggers, traumas, and everything else, the better I am able to help other people do that and to be of service. I'm here to be of service to people in the world. So it just helps me do that. It helps me center. I don't know. It's like a calling. I just do it, And the mindfulness, it just helps me to be mindful in everything that I do. Packing my bag for traveling and, interacting with people on the street and being mindful, especially now, of everybody's feelings and fears and whatever around where we've been for the last 6 months, and kind of stepping out of my own way and looking at it, without okay, there's no judgment, So we all have our own path, and our paths intersect. They go different ways. They come back. There's an ebb and flow, and just trying to stay within the flow and the stillness. And this just, it helps me to remember the impermanence of life, of this life, this body that I'm in now, this space that I'm in now. I'm leaving it and I'm going to a different space and time. And yeah. I think it's important to remember that, as we go through life. It's just it's always changing. And, how do we flow with the change and stop resisting it? And it's hard because we do resist it because we've become so conditioned in habitual patterns, whether they're whatever they come from, but just, okay, so this is a way I can look at it. This is another way I can look at it. Does that make any sense?
Total.
Absolutely not.
Okay, that's what I thought.
No.
Both, yeah.
No. I mean, what you said, as you're saying it, I was just telling myself, how do I kind of just, bring what you said into just a few words. I mean, but so many things pop up. One thing that pops up is personal hygiene, in the sense that, if you go to the doctor's office, they put on masks. Is it because they're sick? No, if they're sick, they won't be there. But they're basically taking the responsibility of not causing harm. And so I think one of the things you said, Holly, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're in the position, or you like to be in a position to provide service to people on a spiritual level. So it's like putting on a mask. It's making sure that you yourself is in a mentally healthy position before you reach out. Is that correct?
That's yeah, you said it better than me. I mean,
Of course, yeah. I'm the marketing guy here. Come on.
I mean, I've been working this whole pandemic with kids and families. I haven't stopped. And, there was always, I followed protocols. I had protocols set up where it felt safe. As long as I felt safe, they felt safe. In meditation, I was able to tap into something where I just kind of instinctively knew who needed the help and who I could continue working with and who I couldn't work with physically, like in person.
And this is, isn't Chan Buddhism considered, don't they interpret it as an intuitive path? So I don't know if that's right or not, but it does. It seems that meditation also builds our intuition muscle. So like Holly was saying, she just kind of innately knows the right choices to make. It's kind of hard to explain intuition rationally, just kind of an inner knowing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's another thing. It's just because when we take care, this is like another teacher I have, he calls like different spiritual practices energetic hygiene. So this, it's like meditation is like a consciousness and energetic spiritual hygiene. So when we're able to take care of ourselves, then we can help the world, right? So that's one thing I forgot to mention as well, because I'm in really not a really decent position to help somebody else or pretend or try to help somebody else when I'm a hot mess myself, So this, we always talk about the importance of physical exercise. This is more of a kind of a mental exercise or a combining of body and mind, centering, grounding.
You guys, I'm going to have to go because it's nature, because I have to go out in nature and my friend is back home now.
That's all right. Yeah. So hopefully next time, wherever you are, Holly, just check in next time, okay?
I will. So keep sending them to me because I'll be in Scotland at this time next week or whenever you do them. So the time in Scotland right now is 6:20, which is great.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is recorded, so when you have a chance, come back, and then you would know what we say when you're not here.
Sounds good. Now you can talk about me.
Yeah, I can definitely talk about you. Okay, thanks, Holly. Thanks
All right, Holly. Bye now.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for checking in.
Yeah.
And then Helen, if you're interested in talking, just unmute your mic so we know that you want to talk. Otherwise, we'll just keep going.
Yeah. So the other thing that Holly mentioned that in her kind of part of the conversation that kind of pops into my mind is one time my wife and I traveled in New Zealand, and we saw this girl walking around with a bag that says, "Just because I'm wandering doesn't mean that I'm lost."
Yes. The bumper sticker now around here. All who wander aren't lost. Yeah.
So I immediately took a picture of that and sent it to Holly, and she really liked it. And so I think part of what she said is that other than, in addition to the work that she does, which is really kind of, I would say, just kind of body and mind oneness, how to fix someone who has physical illness by tapping into their more of a spiritual level. So that's really what she does. But at the same time, she is really the world wanderer. And I think what she said is to me, sounds to me that when you wander around the world, I often thought about this, is is it best to have a compass, or is it best to have a GPS? See, now there's a very subtle difference there.
You might as well get both. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you have a choice, you get both. But do understand the difference. I mean, so a compass is external, right? So if you are wandering in life, and you realize that you're getting direction from something external, you have to stop and think, hey, I've done this long enough. Maybe there's a different way. And in some way, meditation is really finding yourself, and it's really like developing your own inertial guidance system, where you're not following someone anymore. You're following your own. And so I think it just what Holly said just strikes me as someone who's in search of that, right? In search of that, who that is. So so for me, my own practice, and I said this before, it's about freedom. It is about freedom. It's about exploring, and it's about freedom. Freedom, not in an outward materialistic way, because the definition of freedom is choice. You know, I remember back in the days when I was running my own company, people talk a lot about commitment. You know, that you have to have commitment. This is when like the Japanese quality circle were big, and so they always talk about, you have to be committed to a bigger cause. You have to be committed to the company. So people talk a great deal about commitment, and I often make the joke that says, well, that's what the nail thought when he stuck into the board, that he's committed to that piece of wood, where in fact he's actually stuck. So you have to really understand the difference between committing something and being stuck into something. And so that to me is the ultimate definition of freedom, which is, hey, do I get to choose? Do I get to choose? So my own pursuit is now that I do have freedom, now that I do have choices on a material aspect, how do I go further and have freedoms on more of a spiritual or mental aspect, so that ultimately I can make better choices? And of course, the path in doing that is one of understanding. Just know that. What is like you were saying. I like the way you said is like brain is not mind. They're actually different. Although the problem is that we don't know what mind is.
Yes. And those are great metaphors, Denny. Yeah, and then the commitment this is a tricky one for me. It's a sticky one, because it's what are you committed to? I think commitment's important, but if you're committing to all these, superficial things and having all this responsibility, committing to things that really don't matter in the long run. I mean, we all have to have certain, daily commitments and stuff, but what do we really want to commit to and put our energy and time and effort into? What's important, what's needed? So that's, yeah. So like you said, so many people want so many people to commit to their own things, certain things of that. But what is ultimately going to lead to more freedom, to liberation, to peace, to ease? All these. That's one other cool thing is, for me, instead of moving from goal driven, well, actually, I never really was super goal driven, although those are important. If we have core values, then every moment of our life can be in alignment with those core values. So it leads to more satisfaction and what we're after anyway, instead of just going from one goal to the next, to the next, to the next. Although we still need goals. But like for me, my core values are just kind of like, I kind of took these from a teaching or Dharma talks and teachings, like a bird. So the wings of a bird, you have wisdom on one wing, and the heart qualities, kind of like the Brahma Viharas of loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, and sympathetic joy, altruistic joy, vicarious joy, however you want to. And then, so we can't just have one of those wings. Both of them balance out each other. So the wisdom on one end, and then the heart qualities on the other. And then also the bird signifies freedom, right? So a bird is completely free. And then what else does a bird need to be flying high in the air? Well, it needs effortless courage. Courage is so effortless and inbuilt that it doesn't even really consider it anymore. Because to go way up, if we were to fly way up without any, just by ourselves, it would be scary, because we thought we could drop any time. Well, a bird can drop any time, but it's just completely fearless in the sky, right? Because it's just natural ability, so it has courage. But Yes. So help me get back on track here. Yeah.
yeah. So no.
Yeah.
I think if I understand it right, is when does commitment becomes attachment?
Yes, exactly. So if we want to have attachment or healthy attachments, I think should be towards complete and utter free and liberation until we get close to that point, and then we can even let go of that, right?
Yeah. But I think
But yeah, your
in
point
the
on a
end
more mundane level.
it's how do you know? Well, you don't know.
Well,
You
see,
don't
that's
know
where
because
this.
we don't have we don't we're not trained, and unless you have training and practice, you don't
Yes.
have the visibility, and if you
Yes.
don't have the visibility, then they're just words, right? Then they're just words. So for example, like we in Buddhist teaching, we don't like the word attachment,
Yes.
right? Because it means that your attachment. Another
Well,
word for that is we don't like clinging.
clinging is.
Clinging
I
is
like
like
that
you
better.
take,
Yes, even
yeah, you
better.
take a
Yep.
saran wrap. That
Yes.
happens, right? Every time you take a
Yep.
saran wrap, if you're not, you lay it down on the countertop because if you're not careful, then it's really hard to, take it. Then you have to start all over again, right? So
Yes.
so so this is really so one thing that we don't like is the idea of clinging. Clinging means that you're so attached to something that it that the it's like traveling. It's good to have a destination, but often we are so attached, and so we're that the destination becomes so important that we forget that the journey is also part of the travel, and so it's the same. It's the same about attachment. I actually think that attachment is important. You have
It
that
can't
attachment.
as long as we know how to do it skillfully and wisely attach, and then also be able to detach. But I like the word because there's psychological kind of baggage around this. The term I think in Buddhist that's more healthy is non-attachment, right? But then the attachment can also be needed though to, like in a psychological, kids want to be able to have a healthy attachment to their parents, right?
Hmm.
Also, we might need to attach to something temporarily to really study and observe it, right? But then when the time comes, we can disengage or detach from that.
Yeah,
But this is
yeah,
where we comes in really important of discernment skills. So, like I mentioned before the show, in some notes, this is where you said, well, how do we know if we can't, if we don't have the visibility? Well, this is where spiritual friends are so important, and then valued teacher
yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
master. Yeah, so that's where it comes in. So I
So
guess we can transition maybe to feedback about our
yeah.
practice too and how to do
So
that.
so just I mean there is that very tiny micro possibility that we at least have one audience, okay, that actually stay with us, in 30 minutes. Okay, that just you have to be open to that possibility. So I do want to at this point kind of do a summary, which is that between Josh and I, and whenever Holly can check in, and Helen and other people that want to join us in the future, what we really want to do is spend some time here to exchange ideas and experiences in our practice. And one of the way that we do that is we take these terms, whether they're attachment and aversions, and all those things and
Clinging.
really like have each one of us explain how we, what does that mean to me, and then to have that. If I may, one of the things that I wanted to do is summarize what Josh talked about is ultimately it's about discernment and visibility. It's about knowing what is considered kusala or a kusala, right? Which is a very interesting term because it's different from good and evil. It's very
Yes,
different, right?
yes,
Now,
because it's so important. Yep.
kusala is translated as wholesome, and a kusala, the opposite of kusala, is translated as unwholesome. And so, one of the interesting things that I find in Buddhism is that it's just when the word a is magical. It's just like magical. It's just like this is what it is, and this is not what it is, right? So just put an A on it, and that becomes the other part, which is different from other religions that when we talk about good and evil, because when we talk about good and evil, implicit in that is that there's an authority. There's someone out there, right, who judges you. And I think that in our practice, whether you want to call it Buddhism or not, then ultimately we're talking about we are our own judge. We have to decide if this is good for us or not good for us. And we do it because it's kusala, or we do it because it's akusala, right? So the word kusala is important. That is this good for me? Is this something healthy, right? It's like deciding what to eat. It's like deciding what exercise you want to use.
Does it lead to our long-term happiness and the
Yes.
long-term happiness of others?
Yeah. So again, in the simplest form to explain what we would like to do in this forum and what we like to do going forward is to just each of us have our own way of explaining, what makes us happy and how do we go about that, and not necessarily in a material standpoint, not about having a lot of things, although things are important, but to ultimately put some perspective to that is that, well, that is important, that's the foundation upon which we can build more, right? And it's all about knowing what is that more, what is that, right? What's going on, right? And so we talk about our practice, we talk about sitting meditation, walking meditation, ultimately to really understand the body and the mind, right?
Can I
So
pick
if I
up
may,
what-
I want to just one more thing, and then I
Sure.
want to switch topic, because
Okay.
you had a bunch of suggestions.
Sure. But,
so-
and then I want
so
to
about-
pick up on what you said though too. So go ahead.
Go ahead.
though.
No, go ahead. You do first. You do
Sure.
it first.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Just real quick, the kusala, the good evil. This is really helpful for me because it just kind of sets aside this whole argument of good and evil. Although I can see a purpose for that too, but to just go beyond that. So even people who think they're good or I'm doing this good and you're bad, that it just sets that aside and is able to connect with everybody. Because I haven't yet to find anybody that can really go against skillful or unskillful, wholesome or unwholesome. It's a neutralizer. It gets rid of all these arguments over who's right, who's wrong. Good and evil, because it's just that's been going on since the dawn of time, good and evil. And then also, what were you saying about the? Well, now I'm drawing a blank. Maybe it'll come back to me. But yeah.
Well, no. Let me continue with just as you're talking. I just continue with that. So good and evil, kusala, akusala. A lot of times the problem, I've been a professor for 9 years, so I'm in a good position to talk about some of the deficiency of our formal educational system, starting from kindergarten all the way to graduate school. And in fact, I think that with this pandemic and the idea of doing remote learning and all that, all of a sudden you're removing learning from physicality, and that's going to change. And so one of the problem with our formal education is, and knowing, being a professor, I can tell you this: the students are trained to know two things. That for every question there's an answer. And not only that, the answer is unique. Think about it, right? As a teacher, that's how, look. I put up an exam, and I put out a question. It's not acceptable for me to put out a question that doesn't have answer. And it's not acceptable for me to put out a question that has non-unique answer. Because the world will go up in flame. The academic world will go up in flame.
Good point.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what is that problem? The problem is that not every, in real life, outside of academia, not every question has an answer, and obviously, clearly, there is more than one answer. And so what the problem with institutionalized religion is that there's only one answer. And going back to the good and evil, what's implicit in the discourse of good and evil is that there is only one answer. What's also implicit in the discussion between kusala and akusala is that for every individual, there is an answer. So your answer is different from mine, and I have to respect your answer as much as you should respect mine, I hope, right? All right? It's a very different conversation. It's a very, very different conversation. It's like Earth and Venus.
Yeah.
Right?
And this is where the Buddha goes into, I forget the sutta, where, is it the Kalamas, where they were so confused, they had all these teachers going, and they're like, what should we pay attention to? And the Buddha goes through and lays it out, and that's one of the things about knowing what's wise, skillful, wholesome. It won't be rebuked by the wise. I forget all the exact things, but he lays it out, basically it comes back to knowing for yourself, and then he gives a list of qualities, right? I wanted to pick up a loose end here before that, is you said happiness. Each of us know our happiness, and I love that it's almost a cliche saying at this time that happiness is an inside job, right? Yep. Okay, so now transitioning real quick, unless you want to pick that up. Speaking of questions, I had on there the 4 ways that the Buddha addressed questions. So I don't know if anybody else knows this, but I heard this, and I forget which sutta it comes from. But
by the way, it's the same 4 way that Master Jiru addressed our questions. Yeah, the same.
Oh,
right?
yeah. So you're well familiar. I'll just go ahead and you can
go ahead.
help. You can correct and refine me. So
it should be the way that it's not only the way that historically Buddha have answered question, and it's not only the way that our teacher have answered question. It should be the way we answer each other's question. Right?
But some of the ones are so rare that we don't even think about doing it, right?
Yeah. So what are the 4 ways that we should answer each other's questions?
So the obvious ones that we hear all the time are the first 2, or the 2 that I'll say first is kind of a quick, brief yes or no, or direct, simple, concise answer. The next one is expanding on that with a longer explanation, right? If I'm getting this right. But then the other ones that hardly anybody does, is probably because you'll be socially rebuked, is not answering, just not giving an answer. There was one story in the suttas where somebody asked, is there a self? Is there not a self? And then the Buddha wouldn't answer. And I guess the reason he gave later for that is because no matter which way he answered that, he would have given the wrong impression, or not conveyed it right, depending on that situation, because of the temperament and the situation, the context. But anyway, the last one is answering a question with a question. So sometimes we just don't have enough information about the actual question itself, or sometimes the person is asking the question for a certain reason that an appropriate response would be to respond with a question because of that unique situation, right? So.
So these are the 4 things, right? These are the 4 what we call the canonical forms, right, of interaction. One is that someone asks a question, because after all, we call this show Ask Us Anything. So if they ask us a question, we should respond directly with the understanding that this is our experience and understanding, right? At the same time, we should then ask them to clarify why they asked that question, right? And then finally, we should ask more questions by exploring, because sometimes people don't understand why they ask the question. So you need to kind of explore that. And sometimes you just have to ignore the question, not in a very polite way. Put it aside by just saying that I don't know, I'll go find the answer, or I'll find someone else who find it. Hey, did you know that? Do you know that these are the 4 ways of interacting customers? That is the way that I usually train my sales staff.
Excellent.
And always answer the question. So this is the most important thing. When your customer asks you questions, don't go in, don't try to go in and talk about something else and thinking that, 20 minutes later you will come back to answer. No, answer the damn questions first,
Right away. That's a good idea.
right away,
And
and just say,
don't be
this
afraid to
is.
say I don't know, because
Don't
so
be
many
afraid. I
people
say, oh,
are
yeah,
afraid to say I don't
yeah,
know because they want to appear like they know or smart or
yeah, yeah,
or they're deficient if they can't say if they say I don't know they think they're deficient. And then Denny, I'll let
yeah,
you finish. I might want to come back to though this all ties into the education system and how questions and knowledge are viewed outside of the schooling system because of the schooling system. Well, I can get into that some
yeah.
ideas about that
Now
later. But
we have to leave something for the next show.
yes.
Okay, but we got about 10 minutes.
Okay.
I want to pick up on this question that you have, which is we've been shelter in place for 6 months, right?
Wow.
6 months. I remember celebrating the 100th day because this was like, as soon as it's in San Francisco, it started with St. Patrick's Day. It started with St. Patrick's Day because the mayor decided that if she didn't do that, then people are going to go out drinking that night. And so she actually started the practice in place and just shut down everything, which turned, in retrospect, was the right move. So this was the middle of March. So now we're towards the end of August, right? So this is a long time. So
It's
so
not
the
like that in
question,
Missouri, though, by the way. This is California we're talking about, just in case
we're talking about
anybody's.
California.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about California. And well, come on, in Missouri, you're always social distancing. Come on.
Out in the country, right? Rural areas. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're used to
So
that.
the question is, what does practice in place mean? What does shelter in place mean? How did you how did that affect your practice in both good ways and bad ways? So you go first.
Huh. Well, actually, I don't know if that really applies to me, so I'm gonna get you back or throw it back to you real quick. So there hasn't really been any of that here. I think, and I can't even remember, so I don't want to misspeak, but there's really not much of a curfew or I think there maybe was for a couple days or something, but and then even masks a lot of times are optional in certain places in businesses now. But a lot of the businesses have switched to curbside service and in some of the stuff. It's there's similarities and differences. But what I can see, what I notice the most about this whole thing going on is the amount of fear that it put in people, especially at the beginning. And I noticed it myself and a lot of people around me. It's not as great, I don't think, now. It's just um, that I can see where it's actually, that could be more detrimental um, are just as detrimental as any kind of virus because it could run down our immune system, right? If we're in a constant state of fight and flight and fear. But then again, if somebody's already in that state, to tell them, oh, you shouldn't be in fear, well, then they're just going to get more in fear, right? So that's kind of a paradox with that. But that's another reason why meditation is important is to address our fears instead of trying to hide from them and cover them up because that's one. I look at there's the opportunities of this as some unmet or unprocessed fear it can bring up, which is a good thing because how would we know kind of the opposite of fear if it didn't come up and deal with it. And some people probably aren't really even aware that they're in a state of fear, right? So then since everything people are kind of going back to a more, I would say, natural state. They're not running around uh, mindlessly consuming like they would usually, right? So they're kind of spending more time in isolation, contemplation, yeah, just kind of having to look at how they are, their state, and maybe reviewing their lives and what's been important up to this point. And a lot of that stuff that was once important during this isn't really that they can't do that anymore. So they're just kind of in like either no man's land or don't really know what to do. So that's another thing that our practice has helped us prepare for, I feel, because this is really not that new to us. It's just maybe a different context. And it's also, if somebody wanted to do a self-retreat or things like Denny does on Zoom, I don't know if it's mentioned that he does, well, he's going to go back to this, right? How you've been doing this group practice on Zoom since since the very beginning this started, and that's what I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna wrap it there and throw it back to Denny to answer his own question, and then build on that with what he's learned from his daily practice on Zoom and everything else that goes along with this.
Yeah, yeah. So my answering my own question is how did this pandemic affect my own practice or affect the practice of people around me? You can't. It's a huge event, huge humanity event, but it's still not big enough to change people's way. You know, so you can only the effect of in terms of any positive effect, it's on the edge. You know, it's really on the edge that if you have people who are inclined to practice already, this gives them a sense of urgency, right? Because it's like you roll it down the cliff. If you already passed that point, you're just going to keep rolling. It's just accelerate. And so for a lot of people, I think it's very difficult to go to someone who had never practiced this spiritual, don't have any kind of spiritual practice to speak of, and then to be able to grab them by the neck and say, hey, you know, do this. And they're already this is too catastrophic event. They're already, you know, if they're going down the incline, this just accelerate. And this is very hard. This is my experience. It's very, very hard.
Unless they took time to seek it out for themselves during this time. Say, hey, what can I do? I'm going to go. I'm going to try this. You know, that's the old. I agree with you. Other than somebody saying, hey, what do I really need to do now? Maybe I should look at this. Other than that, I agree. Yes.
So those individuals are, even if they haven't started the practice, they know enough that they wanted to do it. And what this pandemic does is that it really puts the urgency. Okay, so that's a fine difference that I'm talking about. Is that, you know, if you're in this incline and you were already going down that incline to begin with, this event just pushes you, gives you momentum now, and just very, very hard to grab them, take it back. On the other hand, I think you're right, Josh, is that there are people who are always thinking about it, you know, and then now they'll say, oh yeah, and then if you just provide them with the right condition, you know, then they would think that, I understand that. What this pandemic has, if we're talking about positive effect, is for those of us who already have a practice, already have a habit, it really puts the urgency in us. It really puts the urgency in us. And also at the same time, there's that utility aspect, which is, hey, all of a sudden, you know, we're not doing anything anymore. You know, so in our case, I didn't know if there was anybody interested. I just knew that this is what I need. So I throw out an announcement about a daily practice, and all of a sudden people show up, and they say, oh, this, you know, let's do this. And some people do it just out of curiosity, and some people know me already, and they say, oh, yeah, you know, let's do this. And now to me, it's inconceivable that we would stop, right?
Even afterwards, even after this.
Well, first of all, I argue if there's going to be an afterwards.
Right. Yeah. I mean, nobody, unless you're psychic, right?
Yeah. So no, I mean, it's like putting the hands back in the clock. Think about it. You know, once you understand that a clock should have hands, what's the point of taking it off again?
Right? Wow, that's pretty profound. I haven't heard that.
You know. So anyway, I think for me, speaking personally, it is. I hate to use this, but it is what it is. I hate this, but I'm making the best of it. You know, I'm making the best of it, and because it has put an urgency back into my life, and that urgency I actually knew, because when I visit prisons, you know, back in the days when prisons were still open, which is only a couple months ago, that was the one thing that I noticed, is that when you're a prisoner, when you're already an inmate, and you don't have this freedom, quote unquote, to speak of about your physical presence, then the only freedom that you will search is the spiritual freedom. And that's where the urgency comes from. That the more, whereas for those of us who are on the outside, normally we don't have this urgency. And with the pandemic, it puts that urgency back. So I'm grateful for that. I hate to say this as if I'm happy for the. No. But I'm just like personally my own feeling. Yes. I'm very gracious.
There's it's hard to be upset when you're grateful, right? And that they talk about you can put somebody in prison, you can do all this stuff to them, but you can never capture their spirit, right? So that spirit is where the freedom lies, right? Or whatever you want to call it, right? The internal state, Buddha nature, or whatever. And then there's a Pali word that talks. It's called. I love this word, samvega. It means a spiritual urgency, and that's exactly what this is. That's exactly what I guess prison is. It does. It like really prioritizes things and kind of lights a fire under your butt, right? And we notice the benefits immediately and how important it is. It just makes sense immediately. Yep.
All right.
And then, Denny, I guess the other thing, real quick, maybe we can get to a daily practice. So for anybody wanting to, what are some supports for a daily practice and the important? Well, we already talked about the importance at the beginning, but what can people do to establish a meditation practice, a regular meditation practice? Tips and instructions.
Well, it's very difficult to if you don't have a regular practice, a regular pattern for practice. It's very hard to do that on your own. It's very, very hard to do that on your own. So I think it's also very hard for people to kind of jump from zero, to light speed. So it's very hard for someone to commit to a daily practice. But on the other hand, maybe a weekly practice, right? And so Josh and I and the other students, at least on Saturday, 8 o'clock Pacific time, 10 o'clock Central. You guys, you call it Central, right?
Yeah, Central time.
Okay, no, I guess I said Mountain Central. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
We get together, and I like to see us, focusing on at least a weekly practice, 8 o'clock my time. And the other thing that I like to do is at least not necessarily sit down meditation, but to really understand the word, what does meditation mean, and that there are other ways to do this, that you could have both a static and a dynamic form, and you could have all of those. So if you're interested in joining us, I like to see us developing this Saturday forum into something. And so if you join us on Saturday, 8 o'clock my time, we can explore.
And then I'll answer my own question real quick with a couple of things. I like the analogy of it's like brushing your teeth. You could miss a day, but you wouldn't want to. I just find the importance of a daily practice, but we start where we're at, right?
Yeah.
So, like Denny was saying, it could be a weekly, it could be anything. There's a free app online, insighttimer.com, that gives you a virtual community as well. Seek out spiritual friends, a teacher, explore online. And then once you establish a habit, then it's not a big deal anymore. You don't even think about it. It's not,
there's so many avenues. A friend of mine used to say to me, he says, until I was discharged from the army, I didn't realize that there's so many green trucks. There's so many people online, and that can just start somewhere, right?
Yep.
Start somewhere.
Okay. Start where we're at too.
Okay. Well, Josh, I know you so long, and I like this forum. This is actually where you and I can actually have a conversation, and other people who check in as well. Okay, we should continue. We talk about how often we should do this.
Okay. All right, Denny. Thank you.
Thank you both for sharing.
Thanks,
Thank you, Helen. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good day. Bye-bye.
I'll just go ahead and log off now, okay?
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.